is the feeling of relief. So a lot of what we think, oh my God, this personal development technique worked great for me, we built up the problem really big in our mind, and then through the technique, through the ritual or the technique, we stopped thinking about it, and we felt such a sense of relief. But again, it wasn't the technique, it was the moment where we stopped thinking about it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's sort of that it's interesting that you said that piece before about the magician piece, because it's almost like the sleight of hand or like the trick of the eye, that recognition is so split second.
Well, there's one of my friends who is a world-class magician. He said that the trick to magic, it is not the hand moving faster than the eye can see. It's the hand moving before the eye is looking. And we're born into the magic trick. As soon as we incarnate, as soon as we get a body, as soon as we get senses, those senses are the magic trick, because it looks like they're taking in the world like a camera, but in fact, they're part of a projection system where the mind projects or paints like a paintbrush onto consciousness, and then we experience it back through our senses as if it's coming at us from the outside. The magic trick's in the equipment. It's not in us not being good enough.
Gotcha. And in this whole conversation, we've talked about these sort of, like natural versus normal, for example. And then I know you've also got a description versus prescription. How does that fit in here?
One of the things that makes it hard for people to hear truth is that we're so habituated to listening for a prescription. So we come into an interview like this, to a conversation like this, to any of the conversations on the World Summit, and we're looking to be told what to do.
Right.
In a way, we're listening for the answer to the question, how shall I live?
Right.
Now, a conversation about truth is a conversation about what life is and how life works. It's a description of what's already going on. It's not a prescription for what to do with that information. So I sometimes describe it as the difference between before the therefore and after the therefore. So what's before the therefore is just true. I think. That's just true. Therefore, I am. Well, yeah, that's only one of the interpretations. Right? I think, therefore, I must do something about my thinking. I think, therefore, it would be good to master my thinking. I think, therefore, like all the dissension in the ranks of humanity is after the therefore. It's in the conclusions that we come to about truth. And where it gets really messy is that we tend to come to those conclusions without even checking if the first part is true. So, what's true before the therefore is that people think. What's true before the therefore is that people are awake at a certain level to experience. They have consciousness. What's true before the therefore is that people are alive, that there is an animating force that runs through us without which we wouldn't be here. Now, what we decide to do with our lives, given that we're alive, we're awake, and we think, well, that's the individual journey. That's our personal artistry, as Don Miguel Ruiz would say. That's where we can develop our mastery of life. But without the truth, it's the blind leading the blind. Without the truth before the therefore, our best theories about what we should do about it they're not based in good science. When we have good science, when we have the good physics, we can do good engineering.
And then when you I've heard you refer to the 3 principles. How do they come in here?
Well, actually, we just did them, right?
Aha, you just didn't name them.
I just didn't name them because they're not. The problem with naming them first is then they sound like things that I've got to learn.
Okay, gotcha.
They're pre-existing forces that we name to talk about. So this pre-existing aliveness, this animating force, this intelligence behind life that turns acorns into oak trees, we call that the principle of mind, like a universal mind, a divine mind that's informing and enlivening all of life. That capacity that wakes us up and that allows us to know and experience, we call that the principle of consciousness because it's a fundamental force, it's a fundamental presence that every human being is a part of. And this capacity to create, to live in a world of thought, that's the principle of thought, not the individual thoughts that we might be thinking with the principle,
right? But
it's the capacity to create something from nothing. So thought is the missing link between the infinite intelligence and energy of life and the form of the world that we live in.
And so it's funny, I hesitate even asking you this question, but I'm going to anyway.
I'm trembling in fear, just so you know.
Of course,
absolutely
I know you
terrified.
Yeah.
I'm going to go grab a drink. I'll be back in a minute.
So, given what you shared about description versus prescription, I want to see if there's something that you can share with the listeners who've been here and who are, getting the flashes and getting the sensations and who are having a direct experience of this. So we're bypassing the piece, or not bypassing, we're moving beyond the piece of I understand that it should be funny, but I don't get the joke. I'm talking about the people who are getting the joke.
Yeah. Well, okay. So in other words, you're about to ask me what's the prescription, Mr.
But I'm not going to
guy.
use that word.
Right, because then that'll fool everybody into thinking that we're just still talking about truth. Okay, go for it. I'm with you now.
I would say, what is the first, what's a way actually into, because it's almost like going through a portal, it feels like to me.
Yeah, it is. It's waking up from the matrix.
Yeah,
it's all of that stuff. That's what those are metaphors for.
Yeah.
That's what spiritual awakening is a metaphor for.
Yeah.
So I'm going to actually, give you the prescription.
Thank you, Michael.
Look for truth.
Mm-hmm.
Look for impersonal truth, universal truth.
Mm-hmm.
Not in a book.
Mm-hmm.
Look in your own consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
Look within. Right? Don't worry about what I say, what all the other Hay House authors say, what your mom said. Look in your own. Look within. Get out of your head. You're thinking about it. And see what you can see. Stay in the conversation. If you've got anything from this, if you've gotten even a piece of the joke, keep looking because there really is something to see. Keep listening because there really is something to hear. And look for a silent mind. Look for the space within. Look for the quiet out of which the noise comes and goes. Because everything that you're looking for will come through that quiet, that peace, that stillness.
Beautiful. Thank you. I couldn't agree more. And I'm so grateful to have had this time with you. And I'm so grateful that you've had the opportunity to share your wisdom and grace with our listeners. Thank you, Michael.
That was fun. Thank you.